Hi there.
Hello.
Hey, Craig Way here. How are you?
I'm doing good, Craig. This is Ray Zapata from Cypher ISD.
Yep, good to see you. I think we're first in on this deal, so that's good. So we're getting all squared away with this thing. Let's see if I can go to.
Okay. Hey, Craig, can you hear me?
I can.
Craig, this is Kendall Miller from Garland Lakeview. Hey, Craig.
Hey, Kendall, how are you?
Hey, great. How are you doing?
Great. Trying to make sure I don't mess this up today. I didn't mess it up last night. So all the Division I coaches did their thing. I managed to stay enough out of the way, so it all worked out. So there's hope that this one will actually come off well too.
You got a few notches in your belt. I bet you can handle it.
It only means I'm getting older. That's all. By my count, after Coach Webb, Thanks Academy, then I've got Coach Carter going, then Greg Poole going, and then you, Kendall, and then you, Ray. Is that what you guys have down?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Very cool. There's Hank Carter.
Hey guys, how's it going?
Good.
Hey, Coach.
Good, are you?
Good to see y'all.
Me too.
Good to see you.
What are you, about 6 miles back behind my right shoulder, back out that way?
I'm actually up at the high school today. We went back in the office, I guess, 2 weeks ago, and we just had a bird fly in this meeting room that I'm in, so we had to run him out real quick.
Wow.
I think we're under control now.
Okay. Is that is that in where you are? Is that in your bubble or in your did you say in your meeting room?
Yes, sir. It's we call it the Cavalier Activity Center meeting room, team room. So it's just right off of our indoor.
I got you. Okay. Very cool. Very cool.
Hey, if times aren't exciting enough, Coach, chasing a bird out of your facility, it's awesome.
I know. We've been doing it for about the last 15 minutes. Finally got him out. So.
Expect anything less these days, right?
So, Craig, do we need to test any of this stuff, or does it sound okay?
What? I think we're testing right now. I think it's okay. I think probably Becky will let us know if something else needs to be done differently.
Okay.
But I think we're in good shape. Once we get Greg Poole in, then I think we have our whole group ready at that point. And then Coach Webb will do just the thanking of Academy. And then as soon as he's done with that, as soon as Coach Webb finishes, then I'm going to introduce you.
Okay,
and
super.
Then you'll go from there. So it's just like, the academies have done in the past when we've all been in the same room up on the dais there, up on the stage there in the ballroom. Same type deal.
Hey, guys, if it's okay with you guys, I'm going to try to share my screen here and make sure that works before we get started.
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah.
I guess you can see that all.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Yep. That looks good. See, you guys have more bells and whistles. All I have to do is introduce you and stay out of the way. There's Dr. Poole down there. Good to see you join us as well.
Well, Dr. Poole is actually not here yet. I'm not sure when he will be here. This is just someone from the technology department. I'm just making sure volume's good because he will slip in at the last minute.
No worries.
Say, Dr. Poole looks much better than he usually does.
Absolutely. I had you down in a small box and I wasn't wearing my glasses, so now I can see.
All right, so I'm going to mute, but as long as y'all can hear everything, the volume's okay, then I'll just mute it, and when he gets here, he'll slip in the picture.
Excellent. Great job. Appreciate it.
Yes.
I'm going to share my screen too, and let's see. Make sure everything's working on our end. Okay, I'll see some stuff there.
There it is.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, that looks good. Hank, did your kids get to go back and work any last week? Or did you
we had 1 day. Yeah, we went back for 1 day. So we've done 1 week and 1 day this summer. That's all we've got.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
The bummer.
That'll ramp up everything in a hurry.
Yeah.
Got you by a week.
By 1 week?
About 1 week. Yeah, 2 weeks and 1 day. So Yeah, been interesting.
Kendall, are you in the, where are you doing yours from? That's pretty impressive looking. Your backdrop behind it.
This is my house. This is my. No, I'm at the headquarters of the THSCA in San Marcos.
Oh, okay. You're down in the office. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. I started to say, well, that's in your rumpus room, right? That's just in your
Right.
I like that. Okay.
Hey, Craig.
Yeah,
Can you see Glenn here? Okay.
I can. Hey, Glenn.
Ronnie Flowers is the guy that sponsored this event with Athletic Supply.
Did you hear that?
I could hear it a little bit.
He said Ronnie Flowers from Athletic Supply is the person that sponsored this.
Right. Is Coach Webb thanking him? Is he bringing him on? That's what Becky had told me, that he was going to start it up.
Welcome everybody. Okay.
But you need to get.
Excellent. Good deal.
Craig, how long has it been since McDonald's High School Roundup? How long ago?
Oh gosh, make me feel old. I think the last year we did it was 93 or 94, because by then we started, it was 94, I think, because then we started doing the statewide show.
That's right.
And we were pretty busy with that all the way through with, it might even have been 95, Kendall, because 96 is when we started what was then called High School Extra Live. Yeah.
That's right. I think it was the last.
Yeah.
I remember being in high school and just thought that was the coolest thing ever. But when that started, and now of course it's a 747 now, but yeah, that was
when we taped that show. Believe it or not, it was in an actual garage portion of a storage unit in Grand Prairie. That's where we actually shot that show from the guy's production company that did it. Jeff Watts and his production company, which by the way, now they've got big cameras and stuff, and they do a game every Friday night that they tape delay on Channel 21 there in the Metroplex. But
sure.
When we were doing that show in 92, 93, 94, and 95, those 4 years, it was in a little garage studio. I mean, literally lifting a garage door, like for a storage space thing, but in a garage area. That's where we did the show, and we would record it from 1 a.m. to 3 a.m. because it was airing 9 o'clock in the morning on Saturday on Channel 11.
That's right.
And so we were recording it from 1 a.m. to 3 a.m. because I was on the air at KRLD. We would do our game of the week, and then I would go back to the radio station and do a live scoreboard show from 11 to midnight. That's the one that we modeled the show that we do on Fox now afterwards, that we started in 96 as High School Extra Live, and now as High School Scoreboard Live. It was modeled on what we were doing on the radio in the Metroplex, which I started doing in 85, from 85 to 90 through 94. Those 10 seasons, we did that scoreboard show, and then we took it to television after that. But it started from that. By then, we were doing that in the Fox studios where we are now. But that local show you're talking about, that McDonald's High School Roundup, that was that was some very humble beginnings and some very Spartan setup, I have to say.
If you'd asked us, it was Sports Center, so it was all right.
Well, I appreciate that. We used to like to say once we got it to Fox with what we do now, that we like to think of it kind of as a Sports Center for high school football with all the scores and highlights. In truth, it's more like election returns because stuff is flying at us coming in.
Right.
I mean, we're literally seeing the highlights for the first time. Like, say, we'll have highlights. Hank will have a game, let's say Lake Travis is playing Bowie or something, and literally they're handing me a highlight sheet as the highlights are coming up, and I'm seeing it for the first time. So fortunately, with a lot of the programs, with Hank's program, with a lot of the programs, I know the kids, know the coaches, a lot of that, but we'll get some obscure ones like from far West Texas or far East Texas, a 2A or a 3A school, and there might be a name and we're looking at it, and I'm flat out guessing the pronunciation of the name and hoping that I'm not butchering it too much afterwards. Usually, if we do, we hear about it. Somebody will email and say, "Hey, appreciate the coverage. By the way, the kid's name was pronounced Smythe, not Smith," or something like that.
Right. That's cool. Ron, is it time for you to? Yeah. Yeah. 5 minutes.
Thank our sponsor, and then turn it over to Craig.
Okay, so you'll do that 1 minute prior to noon, or?
I think right at noon. Yeah. Like right at noon. Yeah, it starts at, yeah. How's it going, Hank?
Doing well, Coach. How are you?
Good. How's everything down in Travis County? You got them straightened out yet?
No, it's I wouldn't say straightened out yet. I was hoping that Dr. Elza will tell us something today, but it may take a little bit longer.
Same up in Dallas.
Yeah. Whatever it is, we'll roll with it. We'll figure it out.
Sure.
Better not get gassy before we get on.
All right, 1, 2, 3. Good afternoon and welcome to the 2020 THSCA Head Coaches Academy. This has become one of the signature events of our annual convention. We've got a great lineup for you today, and all of these speakers are being brought to you by the good folks at Athletic Supply. We appreciate their sponsorship and all they've done for our association. This time, I'd like to turn it over to our host, Craig Way.
Coach, thank you very much. We appreciate it. And again, we send along our thanks to Athletic Supply for all of their help and their assistance as well in bringing you this head coaching academy. You know, what's said about the head coaching academy is that it is indeed training the next generation of head coaches. And many of you who are viewing this are, you know, wondering, how do I take that next step? What are some of the key factors, key things that I need to know, as well as the pitfalls of what can be as you move toward eventually becoming a head coach? And for those of you who are head coaches, it's continuing education, so to speak, as it goes on. Well, we have an esteemed panel of speakers who can get to that as it deals with you as head coaches and also from the administrative side of things. Leading us off right now is a gentleman who can speak very, very well on this first topic. Now, this first topic is entitled Effective Parent Communication and Booster Club Management. There's an old tried and true saying about coaching when it comes to booster clubs, that they can be both a blessing and a curse, and sometimes at the same time. And this first speaker can speak to his qualifications, not only as a head coach, but also in his relationship and fostering good relationships with parents and with booster clubs. We're talking about, of course, Lake Travis head coach Hank Carter, who has been at Lake Travis High School since the spring of 2008. He worked alongside head coach Chad Morris for 10 years and multiple stops before Coach Carter took over as head coach of the Lake Travis Cavaliers in January of 2010, after having previous coaching stops at Bay City and Eustis, and coming in from Stephenville. Now, Coach Carter's been part of 5 of the 6 state championships that the Cavaliers have achieved since the 2007 season, and he has served as head coach for 3 of those state title seasons in 2010, 2011, and 2016. Coach Carter's overall record as a head coach is 129-17, and his teams have reached the state semifinals or advanced even into the state championship round 10 out of 12 seasons, including 5 state championship appearances. And this 2020 season will be Coach Carter's 13th with the program, his 11th as head coach, and his 8th as both head coach and athletic director, and ready to visit with us on the topic again of effective parent communication and booster club management. We welcome head coach Hank Carter of Lake Travis. Coach.
Thank you, Craig. Much appreciated. Hello to everybody out there at THSCA. I really want to say thanks to Athletic Supply and Ronnie Flowers. You know, they really take care of most of, if not all of our business here at Lake Travis, and they've been incredible. I know they've supported the THSCA for a long time as well. Thanks also to Coach Martin, Coach West, and all of the members, and Becky there at THSCA making this happen today. Unfortunately, we've gotten really good at holding these Zoom and virtual meetings. And so that's how we're going to do this today. And so, you know, Craig mentioned earlier, I've been all around the state, to be honest with you, in Lake Travis. I've been here for a while, and I hope I don't ever leave. Our problems are, you know, some of them may be some of the things you guys are dealing with out there, and some may be different. I am our district's athletic director, and so I try to take a lot of pride in preparing our assistant coaches to be head coaches one day, and also spend a lot of time, along with our assistant athletic director, Mike Drinkwater, at educating our current head coaches to be better at all the things that they need to do their job. And so I'm going to share my screen with you, and we're going to get into the parent involvement. And then at the end, we're going to talk about booster club stuff just a little bit. But most of what we're going to do here is dealing with parents. Let me see if I can share this. All right, we're going to start the presentation here. Okay, so starting off, you know, getting right into the parent involvement stuff, and these are really things that we're going to be talking about with our coaching staff coming up here in the next few days. But the good, the bad, and the ugly is what I like to refer to it. Typically we have a fall and spring parent meeting in the football program, and one of the things I lead off almost every meeting with is the best part about being at Lake Travis is the parents, and the worst part about being at Lake Travis is also the parents. And so there may be a lot of that going around our state. And I just wanted to touch on it a little bit. But parent involvement is something, and again, you know, Lake Travis is different than a lot of places around the state, but we have a very, very involved parent group, and from elementary all the way up through our high school and all of our extracurriculars. And so that really dominates a lot of our decision making and a lot of our time. And, you know, how can we best serve those parents and deal with them so that we can do our jobs? So basically, I like to use a lot of analogies. Our assistants give me a hard time about it. But whenever you have parent issues, there's typically a disconnection between what the expectations were versus reality. And so if the expectation was X, but the reality is Y, then somebody's going to be upset. And so and some of this stuff, it's really common sense, but I'm going to talk to you about the things that we hit on a daily basis that I feel like have helped us be successful, but we're always growing and we're always trying to get better at what we're doing. But the coach, the player, and the parent all have to be on the same page about the why. We talk about the why all the time. Why is the kid on the team that he or she is on? Why is the kid in the position that he or she is on? Why are they playing on that side of the football or that's, that side of whatever you're dealing with? And so getting everybody to be on the same page about the why is critical. And it comes down to communication by the coaches. I can remember being a younger teacher coach and sitting in, back in the old days, it'd be a faculty meeting in the library. And I can just remember rolling my eyes, trying not to roll my eyes, but I probably did because the principal or AP, whoever was talking at the time, it would always be about discipline issues. And as the teacher picked up the phone and called the parent. And I can tell you that I have now a lot grayer than I was back then, understand how critical that is. And so really being able to communicate with the kids and with the parents on almost a daily basis, certainly weekly, if not, once a month, is going to be critical in how those relationships go. Open dialogue. And so that, again, when things are good, I'm probably guilty of this, and that's why we set some things in place at Lake Travis to try to assist with it. But everybody loves hearing something good about their kid. My two children are in elementary school, and when I get an email from their teacher, or if I see them on an announcement or there's an assembly where they're going to be given an award or recognized for something positive, that's awesome. It's pretty hard to have a bad day whenever you hear something good about your kid. And so I think it's important that if we catch them doing something good, especially those kiddos that we have that struggle at times, we need to make sure that we let the parents know about it. And certainly when things are bad, never do it by email. We have a policy here. We don't answer a long email with another long email. If it takes us more than 2 minutes to sit down and think about how we're going to respond, we're going to give about a 3-word respond. I'll give you a call, something like that. And then we're going to handle it by phone or in person. And I can tell you that sounds commonsensical to me, but we still have young coaches and really coaches on a day-to-day basis that choose not to do that because they don't like the interaction. And really, if you're going to deal with issues and you're going to deal with people on a day-to-day basis, you have to be willing to have some tough conversations, and you have to be willing. I don't know how often do we talk to our kids about being comfortable, being uncomfortable, and finding ways to get out of their comfort zone. As coaches, as teachers, as educators, we have to do the same thing. And picking up the phone or sitting down and having a difficult conversation with a parent is not easy, but what it does is it starts to build a relationship of trust. And it also creates an open dialogue, which is what we want. And something else that we've done, and we've done this for many, many years now, is every single position coach has to make 3 positive calls or emails, reach out to 3 parents. And it may be from our 9th C team all the way up to our varsity or one of our managers or a filmer, just somebody within our program. I tell them no less than 3. And why did I come up with that number? Just to make sure that it's something manageable for our staff, but also something that will be impactful to make sure that we're spreading the good news. And so 3 times, or 3 different kids or parents a week, we're going to reach out to, and we try not to have any repeats. If you get to week 13 or 14, a lot of times you may be calling the same parent. But we try to do that because, again, it's a lot easier to jump on the phone or get on the email when the kid has done something that's created a disruption, or there's some negativity associated with what's going on with he or she in the program. Sometimes we sweep it under the rug a little bit whenever somebody does something good. If you think about when you're sitting down in your film study, how often, and again, I'm guilty of this. I think as football coaches, we certainly fall into this. We're talking about anything that detracts from the perfect play or the perfect execution. And we don't spend as much time on pointing out the positives or the things that we did great. And so that's something that we do. So 3 times a week, we're going to reach out to parents. And what I think that does is now when the phone rings and they see it's the high schooler, it's the position coach or one of our coordinators calls, they don't automatically assume it's something negative. Sometimes it is, but a lot of times it's going to be a positive call or a text from our coaches. Explaining that coaches and parents are in a partnership. This is difficult. And I want to reiterate, we have a very, very challenging parent group. And to be honest with you, not to be cynical, but I've been in this business for a long time. I really don't ever expect the parents to see it the same way that the coaches or teachers do. That doesn't create a negativity for me, but I just assume that they're going to look at it for what benefits their singular child, and we're going to look at it for what that child can do to enhance his or her skills, but really the betterment of the team. And typically, if they can be of help to the team and prove their overall worth within that program, then also the individual kid, gets rewarded. But we don't see it from the same viewpoint. And I'm a parent. I look at my kids, I would hope that I'm a little harder on my kids than most parents because I grew up in an athletic background. My dad was a coach, and I can remember those games coming home from a game, riding with dad, and I almost wanted to wish I rode with mom or what have you. But, still I look at my kids and I'm always looking at, what their potential was or really in a different way probably than their coaches do. And so that being said, most of our parents are not athletic people, and so they're not going to see it the same way. But we want to make sure that we get the coaches and the parents on the same side. And it's the coach and the parent over here trying to do what's best for the kid. And so whenever we start to have parent issues, or whether at the beginning of the season or the beginning of the spring, that's what we talk about. It's not the parent and the kid across the table, pointing at the coach on why you did this. No, it's the parent and the coach together, working together to try to get what's best for that young man or young woman. And when an issue pops up, we address it immediately. Whether this is good, bad, or indifferent, I've made multiple parent phone calls from the practice field. If I had a very negative interaction with a kid or something that came up that I feel like, it's going to require a meeting with a parent, I've sent a text from the practice field. Or during a break, I pick up the phone and just say, hey, me and Chris just butted heads. It didn't go great. I'm going to follow up with him after practice, but I just want to let you know, that we had a negative interaction there. I do that because I want to get out in front of it. And so I look at these problems, and whenever there's a negative interaction, that's like a fire that's smoldering a little bit. So what we want to do is we want to repair that or put that fire out before it turns into something really, really big. And ideally we do that because we want to make sure that we don't ruin the relationship. And also, if there's a small problem brewing, again, I think that human nature is, it hasn't just shown up right in front of me where I have to deal with it, so people will avoid it. We're proponents of doing it opposite. If there's something small going on, we want to go sit down. We want to deal with it head on right now and kind of rip the Band-Aid off, and let's not have an elephant in the room that we have to deal with later on that becomes something bigger. I know, in interviewing coaches every year and hiring head coaches and interviewing assistants, we always have something on our interview questions that talks about what do you do if a parent comes in and wants to talk about playing time. And I don't know if this, I'm sure this is something that has come from the UIL a long time ago, or maybe even THSCA, about, hey, parents, you shouldn't come in and ask about playing time. But to be honest, I want to be transparent. If the parents, most of the time, they just want to talk about playing time, even if they try to hide it, disguise it as something else. I've got a little saying: the good guys don't run and hide. We don't have anything to hide. We need to be completely transparent with every single thing regarding that kid. I've never understood why coaches are hesitant to talk about playing time. Parents can ask me or any of our coaches anything they want about their kid. They can't ask me about why so-and-so is playing this position. They can ask me while their kid is playing that position, and maybe while their kid isn't playing something else. But I don't run and hide from those conversations, because if there's an issue, or again, if the expectation was X and the reality of the outcome was Y, we need to be on the same page. And so I'm going to give them concrete examples. And again, most of the time what parents are going to come to you is, oh, he or she didn't get a chance. Well, I'm going to explain to them, no, they got a chance in workout. They got a chance at practice. You don't just prove you're playing, that you deserve playing time during games. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to give them concrete, tangible examples of why the kid is playing the amount he or she is. I'm going to be very, very specific about that. Well, coach, we only got 15 plays the other night at wide receiver. We played a bunch at corner, but he's been a wide receiver his whole life. Meanwhile, the kid may be a freshman. And so I'm kind of thinking in my mind, your whole life, this is your first year of high school football. But what I'll tell them is this: your son has not demonstrated on a day-to-day basis that he is more skilled at that position than other kids in that position group. And so even though your kid may be a good player, it's not just, is he good? It's how does he compare to the other people that are in his position group? And it may be they don't know the play. Again, I'm going to be specific about it. I'm not going to talk about other kids, but I am going to be specific because if, number one, maybe the kid and the parent just aren't on the same page about why he's not playing. Maybe there is something he can do about it. Most of the time, the parent is kind of coming out of left field on that. But again, we're going to be transparent. There's nothing we have to hide. All of our practices are open. They can come watch practice. We talk to our parents about don't say anything to a kid that you wouldn't be just fine saying in front of their parent, because a lot of times their parents sitting right up in the bleachers or on the hill watching practice anyway. And the goal, our number one goal of this is to make sure the parents understand that the process is fair. They don't have to agree with us. And we talk about that all the time too. We ask our parents to support us. They don't have to agree. That most of the time they're not going to agree, but that's okay. Agreement is not required, but them understanding and us being able to say how the process is fair, I think that is something that's very important. And listen. So when you have parents that are upset, they have concerns, y'all understand most of the time it's something that they've either taken out of context, or they're seeing only a small percentage of the reasoning for why something is the way that it is. But listen to them. Most of the time, if people can just come in and feel like they can be heard and they have a voice, regardless of the outcome, if they get what they want in the end, most of the time, if they feel like they can come in and talk about their concerns, then things will be better. But again, as a coach, you have to be willing to sit down and have a difficult conversation. Now, again, if they start raising their voice or using foul language, we're going to end the meeting. We're not going to get emotional like that. Nobody makes good decisions when it's based in emotion, and we'll move forward. But I continually remind parents that when there are minor issues, I want the kids to try to handle it first. For freshmen, that's a little harder. But if a kid is driving a Chevy Silverado to my practice every day, he can sit down with a coach and talk about why he only got 15 snaps or why he got pulled out whenever he got a penalty. So parents will try to come in and try to save him, but I'll say, listen, you're trusting him to drive a car. That's a lot more risky than him sitting down with a coach that loves him dearly and having a conversation about why they're not on the same page. And really, if it gets to the point where we're going to have a parent meeting, again, these are minor situations. So if there was something bigger, or there's an issue where they feel like player safety was involved, that's different. But on these minor issues that most of the time have to do with position placement, how much they're playing, things like that, I want the kid in the meeting, because the kid and the position coach or the kid and the coach are the ones that are there all the time. A lot of times as a head coach, you're dealing with those problems, and you may have not been there when the incident happened. But I do think that it's important to have the kid involved in the face-to-face meetings, and it's going to be awkward. But again, if we're going to solve some problems, sometimes you have to be in uncomfortable situations. Sometimes the parents are right. Oh man, every now and then the coaches make mistakes. If that happens, what do? Do I apologize? We don't necessarily apologize, but I acknowledge it all the time. If it's something we did and we really screwed up, I don't have a problem saying I'm sorry, but it wasn't our intention. But I have zero problem acknowledging where we could have done better, and we should have done better. For example, our sub-varsity teams, our kids should be playing every single game, and really we try to get them, the equivalent of about a quarter's worth of play. If something happens and we don't follow through with our end of it, we're in the wrong. And our coaches should be reaching out to the parents ahead of time, pull the kid aside. Ideally, they would remember that and notice it. But again, we're all fallible. There's nothing wrong with being humble and admitting when you made a mistake. And again, nobody's perfect. And if anybody that goes through a season that hasn't made a mistake, it's a pretty dang good coach. But again, I would also add something to be nice. And that sounds easy, but coaching football, coaching competitive athletics in general is a very intense sport. They're intense activities. The person that I am as a coach on the field is not the same person that I am in a parent meeting. And so I say this all the time, be nice. We're in the customer service industry too. And I like to use this little analogy. There's some decades-old studies that basically show physicians that spend more time educating their patients on the treatments and taking time to let them understand it. The ones that are more likely to laugh, use humor in the way that they interact with their patients, and the ones that are more likely to let their patients talk about the things that are going on are much less often sued. And so that's actually a study that's been showed. And so the way I tell our coaches that is being likable matters. And so do your best to be a likable guy or gal, and admit when you made some wrongdoings, and just try to go out there and improve the lives of kids the best that you can. And I'm almost out of time. Booster Club management, I'll spend about another minute or two here. So booster clubs at Lake Travis is a really critical thing. And so we live in an affluent area, but to be honest, when we came here from Stephenville, our athletic budgets are smaller than they were in Stephenville, just because of the type of school district that we are. We write between a $30 and $50 million check to the state of Texas every year. And so our booster clubs, a lot of times, are taking care of not just the, it's not just the big 7-man sled that Coach Spano uses on the offensive lineman field, but really it's for meals for away games. It's for anytime we get a charter bus that's not in the playoffs. And the other thing is we've made a conscious effort to try to refresh all of our equipment to be no older than 5 years. I mean, you can't find a helmet or a pair of shoulder pads in our equipment room that's older than 5 years. And our booster club has been critical in doing that. So what are the key elements for that? Understanding that, number one, you need to recruit parent volunteers. And sometimes in some places that's easier than others. But really you want to get people that understand, I want to be a part of something special and try to enhance the experience for the kids and remind them that they are doing this for the kids. We want the coaches to have a positive working relationship with the parent volunteers, but the people that are raising the money really aren't deciding how the money is spent. The school district decides that. We do want our coaches to be on the same page with the volunteers, so there shouldn't, there's not going to be any big surprises. We want a positive working relationship. We don't have a bunch of face-to-face meetings. I think most of that stuff can be done over email these days. But the goal is recruit energetic parents and empower them to use their network and their own skills to put their own unique spin on things. So we have 3 major Booster Club fundraising events in a normal year, not this year, obviously. But a Booster Club golf tournament. We have something called a Huddles and Heels, which is a women's clinic that we put on, football clinic, and then our spring jamboree, which is our spring game. Every 2 years, those positions roll over, and really, we spell out, here's the things, the do's and don'ts, but we let the parents put their own spin on it. And again, if we don't need the money, we don't raise it. And if we raise the money during a school year, then we need to spend it so that we're not creating animosity with those parents that they want the money that they raise to be spent on their kids. Last couple things. Every head coaching meeting we have, we discuss booster clubs. And not because, hey, you need to go out and raise money. Really, what we're trying to coach up our head coaches about is how can we deal with our boosters in a more efficient way? How can we direct them? And really making sure that our boosters understand the UIL rules. At Lake Travis, we run into that a bunch. Our parents come up with a bunch of great ideas. But we can't auction off, certain things. And in my time at Lake Travis, I've seen it all. But really, that's all the time that I have. See if I can stop sharing this screen right here. Okay, Craig, 20 minutes goes fast. So thanks, everybody. If there's anything you ever need from me, Lake Travis High School, give me a call or email, and I'll touch base with you.
All right, Coach Carter, thanks very much. Appreciate that, your outstanding words here. Our next speaker is going to address a topic that we hear quite a bit with regard to football and how it also relates to life. And that is the words defining success, whether you're talking about on the football field, in the classroom, whether you're talking about not only on the football field or in the classroom, but also just going through the experiences as a coach or an administrator. And our next speaker can certainly speak to that with a great deal of experience. Dr. Greg Poole has served as a superintendent at the Barbers Hill Independent School District for the past 15 years, but you also need to know that he has more than 35 years of experience in education. That's from the classroom all the way to the Capitol in Austin. Dr. Poole really has been a passionate voice for Texas students. In addition to his classroom experience as a math teacher, Dr. Poole has coached high school students to titles. He served as a principal, an athletic director, an executive principal, and a superintendent. He's also instructed aspiring education leaders as an adjunct professor at the University of Houston, Clear Lake as well. Under Dr. Poole's leadership, the Barbers Hill District now leads the state in education foundation balance, financial partnerships with industry, starting salaries for educators, and percentage of national board certified teachers. Dr. Poole has strong ties to public education with a father, a mother, a wife, a brother, 2 aunts, a grandfather, and a grandmother who have all served the public school children of Texas. So here to discuss in greater detail the topic of defining success, we welcome Dr. Greg Poole. Dr. Poole?
Well, Greg, you define success, and so congratulations on a tremendous Hall of Fame career. And I have to say the relative that probably had the most difficult job was Jan Bartlett. She was the superintendent secretary for Post, and so her job was more difficult than mine. Man, did Hank do a good job. I was a head coach and have been at coaching school for decades, and used to go, that was a vacation for us. My dad would take us to coaching school. I still remember getting little pieces of artificial turf and being the coolest kid in the neighborhood because, and the idea was we tried to get enough to farm some platform to play on, which we never could. But to hear a coach say things like, we're going to listen. And growing up in an era when a lot of times coaching at that time was don't ask why. And as a coach, I did want my kids to come over and tell me what they were seeing. And I wanted to see it through their eyes. But it is refreshing, and I think it's evident why Hank is so successful, because he is seeking to build relationships. And so I want to first, before I start talking about success, I know my head coach, Tom Westerberg, who has a few state championships, is listening in, or at least he told me he was. So now I'll get to test him to see if he was. So Ray Zapata, don't text him and tell him that I mentioned his name. And I've got to brag on Susan Elza, Joe Martin, Glenn Hill, fine leaders. Charles Brydup is dealing with things that I'm sure we'll get announcements here soon that are near and dear to all of our hearts. And when you need leaders the most is when the future is most uncertain. And this could not be a time. And I've been watching football. I've been in it for 35 years, but I've been going to Cameron Yeoman football games when I was little, making confetti with hole punchers in the back seat when I was 6, 7 years old. I can still tell you about those games and how we got cheated out of a state championship by Newton in 1975 in Huntsville, but that's a whole nother matter. But when you talk about success, first and foremost, let's talk about what is not success. And this is near and dear to my heart, but I believe coaches are professionals. And I believe as professionals, you can't just decide you get a whistle and you're going to do a club activity and now you're a coach. And it bothers me that those that claim they are coaches are not, and in fact are harmful to kids, because first and foremost, success is not that you're going to win a state championship, and it's not that you're going to get a kid a scholarship. You heard Hank talk about the number, and I giggled or laughed because you're right. Parents want to know about playing time, and they'll disguise it, and they'll come up with these altruistic reasons, but they really want to know about playing time. And that's what's near and dear to their heart. And I'm as a competitive of a person. My mother would say I was competitive about being competitive. And, one of our sayings here at Barbers Hill is excellent, ... by any measure, which is a polite way of saying you bring the competition, we're going to try to win. And so no one would ever claim that I am not a competitive person. We've been very successful here. You heard Craig mention our foundation. I'm very proud that we are the first district. My mother is deceased, but she didn't make any money. My dad didn't make any money. They worked at places that paid state-based. Barbers Hill employees don't even know what state-based is, but I'm very proud to be the first, the superintendent of the first district to pay $60,000. I don't think, for a first-year teacher with no experience, I don't think that's too much. I think that others should get at least that much for the job that we do, and which is the most noble job, and is what a time for us to talk about success with what's going on even as I speak. So what is not success? It's not just winning, but it is including succeeding and winning. So any person that I've ever interviewed, and there may be some out there because I've interviewed hundreds, from being a middle school principal to a high school principal to an athletic director to a superintendent, any time that I've interviewed. So let's start with the dichotomy of success. I say the following, and I always will. I'm not going to change this. And that is that when we have success, it is the most beautiful, noble profession that exists. And what is success? Number one is we're going to make a difference in kids' lives. We're going to change lives. We may be the parent that they don't have. We are going to alter their life for the good. if that's all we're doing, we're a social worker. We are also going to be unashamedly after being the best, whatever it is, for that child to achieve at their utmost potential, to realize their utmost potential. And we're going to be unashamed to say we're going to try to win. And there is a power to winning and there is a power to losing, but I'd rather win. If that's all we're doing, and some of us know coaches that have done that, some of us know programs that have done that, and it catches up with you, because I don't care who you are, and I've been around some good ones, you will eventually run into a downturn. And so if that's all you're doing, you're not meeting the needs of kids. So success, first and foremost for me, always has been and should always be, is we are going to be a difference maker to children. We are going to be perhaps the only difference maker, but for sure we're going to make a difference. And we're going to teach that child the value of success, the value of sacrificing one's own needs for the betterment of the team. We're going to build character. So first and foremost, success for me is a dichotomy, and you have to have those two things present. Now, I was recently interviewed by Channel 2 about the issues that are going on, and here's what the guy said in Houston. He said, now I know, and we were talking about school, which we held a bond election. I think we're the only district in the state to hold a bond election during the pandemic, and thank the good Lord, we had no injuries, and we actually passed it by an 87%, so I'm bragging, but I'll brag. And we had 1,000 more people vote than normally voted. So we have proven, and we're going to do our best to have in-person learning. Other districts' actions are making it tougher. And I don't begrudge them for making the decisions they need to. But we have 80% of our community says that they want us to have a school. And so Channel 2, in-person school. Channel 2 said, now, Dr. Poole, I know you're also the chairman of the athletic committee, and I have been for, 10 years, and very proud to be a part of that, proud that Charles Brydup and Susan and Jamie Harrison trust me enough, and the Coaches Association to allow me that leadership role, because it is absolutely something that I take with the utmost importance. But the guy said, so why are we having football? Why are we even discussing football? Why are we discussing these sports? And, because surely you agree with me, Dr. Poole, that with the dire circumstances that are going on, that's not something we should be considering. And here's what I told him. And it goes back to that dichotomy definition of success. And that is that many of the traits that I possess, if I have any leadership skills, many of them are attributed to my father, who was a coach, and to my head coach, Toby York, who I absolutely think the world of. And those skills, that skill set, many times more important than even, I have a math degree, I have a doctorate at A&M, I have academic success, but yet the skills I picked up in competitive endeavors have stood with me, have allowed me to have whatever successes that I have, as much or more than anything I picked up in the academic arena. So as I said to that gentleman, why would we deny children that? Why would we be saying no to that? Now, I fully understand as I'm speaking, our leadership is grappling with fair competition. And I'm not here to speak on that topic because I'm not in a position to do so. We will be hearing from the UIL, I think, today. And the reality is that whether we can have school or not, we always at the UIL are about fair and equitable competition, always. Not regardless of whether politicians have this desire or that. Our job is, as a group of superintendents, to find leaders. And the UIL leadership, I think Charles is the finest director in the nation of any organization. But our job is fair and equitable competition. One of the struggles right now is increasingly more districts aren't able to field a team. Is that fair to hold the season without them? And I am not suggesting I have an answer, but I do have confidence that the answer that we bring forward will be the best possible solution that is fair and equitable to all parties. But I absolutely hope that we can hold our seasons because they're that valuable. And children get 1 year to have that grade. I've got a son coming into the 7th grade. He's been training all summer, and he is so excited, and he actually is showing a little bit of muscle. I mean, I see some. I'm telling him I see some. And he's excited. He could not be more excited. And I know there's so many bigger issues, but the bottom line is success is having a difference in a child's life, which athletics affords us, and being successful. Let me continue. Other things that define success to me is enhancing the brand. What I listen to when I listen to Hank, and anytime I listen, and this was kind of a foreign concept back when I started the coaching career, because the kid and the parents were supposed to adapt to the program. I mean, it was the program, you adapt to the program. And that's not the case anymore. Successful school districts, entities, businesses are much more in line with responding, with being prescriptive, with addressing the needs of the community, trying to enhance the brand. We talk all the time about enhancing the brand. And I use track as an analogy. I love track. I was a head football coach, but I had a daughter, Hillary, who would run a 60 quarter. But you put a stick in her hand, she'd run 59. Now, she would die afterwards, and I'd have to deal with carrying her around like it was drama like you've never seen. And so if anybody knows Hillary, feel free to tell her that. But she would run a 59 with a stick in her hand. And I talked to our folks here that our job, this district, and I'm going to come back to this topic, was great from the beginning. We've never failed a bond. We've been around since 1929. We've got many state championships. And this district has a long-standing tradition of being excellent. But our job is to not drop the baton. So success is taking whatever the brand is, whatever your athletic brand is, and there's value into, I don't care if you take an 0-10 team, there is a value, or whatever the sport you're coaching. I'm using football as an analogy. There is a value that's there. It may be latent. And so we talk all the time, our goal, my job here is whenever I leave, I've been here 15 years, success to me is I enhanced the brand. And so now that's a broad topic. And how do you define that? Well, for superintendents, passing a bond election, you know, in sports, part of it is winning games. As I said, there's more to that. But as a superintendent, passing bonds, hopefully staying employed 15 years. It's a long time for a superintendent, especially one that can be a little outspoken. But success is about enhancing the brand. Now, you see in the background perhaps an arch. And I want to talk about another aspect of success, and that is honoring the past. I love history, and one of the most powerful things that any person can do in any leadership role that will affect your ability to succeed is to demonstrate an honor and a reverence for those that have come before you, and think of the powerful messages that are sent. So that arch was one we found in storage, and that actually is the arch of the original Barbers Hill High School on the hill. And I can't tell you how many positives we've achieved by simply putting that arch front and center in front of our high school. We had graduates now every year that take a picture under that arch, that had grandfathers, grandmothers, aunts, and uncles that passed under those arches. If you come to Barbers Hill, and we honored the past before I came, but not to this level. If you come to a football game, you're going to see on the side of our field house, which is in the end zone, all of the years that we have district championships in all sports, not in our track, in our girls track, and our girls basketball. And it is a remarkable list of numbers. I mean, it is just a remarkable example of the tradition of excellence that exists here. Now, I copied, good coaches copy. I copied Alamo Heights. So if somebody out there did this in Alamo Heights, you get credit. I give you credit. But I went there one time, and they got a great mascot, the Mules. I'm sure they're the Fighting Mules. I'm sure they are. But they've got, underneath their stadium, or at the time, they had a metal sign of every team that had won a district championship. And it had every kid's name. So if you go to Barbers Hill, you're going to see that. And we do this on all sports. I mean, we have these successes at each of our arenas. But I can't tell you how many times I've seen during games somebody with their grandson pointing up, and the grandson saying, "That's you, Dad," and the pride that comes from that. Now, what is the secondary message, and how does that affect success? Well, we all know kids are going to live up or down to your expectations. And even if you've been at an unsuccessful place recently, there's something there that can be bragged on, that can be brought forward, that can be built up. And you're also sending the message when you do this that I'm coming in and I'm a strong-willed person and I've got opinions. I never lack for opinions. But what am I doing when I, right off the bat, emphasize and enhance the past? I am saying that my job is as much carrying on the tradition as bringing in new things that, the kiss of death for anyone that comes into a new role. Even Tom, came here with lots of state championships, but he understood too. You come in and say, well, this is the way we did it at Allen, and you're going to turn some people off. Now, we do things like he did at Allen, but you want to emphasize the pride, the tradition, the excellence that's exhibited in the past with that school district. And you can do this, National Merit Scholars. I mean, I know this is a coaching arena, but when I came in, we didn't have a list of our National Merit Scholars, which is the highest honor or recognition any student can get. It's remarkable. No, I didn't get it, but I was smart enough to marry a smart woman in National Honor Society and all that stuff. But find ways to celebrate the past. We did something at Belleville, my very first job at Belleville. I think it's still there. I remember going to Microfiche. I got to watch the time because when I start telling stories, Ray, you give me a thumbs up when you know that. Help me out here when time's about going because I can see you there. You give me a thumbs up. I did a number history. I went and looked at Microfiche and the Brenham Library. I mean, this is before internet. God, I didn't have kids. And I didn't get paid much. So, I mean, this was all out of my pocket. But here was my thought, that when you hand a kid the number 10 jersey, and by God, Belleville has had some players now, some kids named Coy, a kid named Zapalak, I mean, some tremendous athletes. And so when you hand a kid a jersey and he looks at all of the people that have worn that jersey, my thought was, I want him playing for more than himself. And this is one of the keys to success, is pulling something out that the kid didn't even know he had. I wrote an article so that you'll understand I'm not just coming to this lately. I wrote one article. I got Article of the Year. They must have not had that many entries, and this is a long time ago. But what it was about, I actually wrote two, but the one was about character education. And this was way back when we were talking about values again, and we were talking about William Bennett had a book out on virtues. And we were under attack. I mean, we've been under attack. All of you know that. Some of you remember a little dot on your watch when Ross Perot was around, and we felt like our profession was under attack. And so we were rallying the troops. But my article was to say that we have the best character building program, bar none. You can't bring one. If a school district or a superintendent can bring something in that is a better character builder than your athletic program, then that's a problem, because it should not be. You should always be talking about the difference that your kids make. You should always be, we're so proud here that I can't tell you how many times we have a dress code, and some of you know that. I won't get into that, but we stay with our dress code. We've had it a long time, and we expect a certain appearance. We have our hair cut a certain way. That's the way we do it. But I can't tell you how many times, and these mean so much to me. This is how you define success. The anecdotal things that you get from parents. There are other schools that see your kids at a eating establishment or after the game. And this has happened more than once, where a parent will come up and say, y'all beat us, but I got to tell you, I loved the way your kids played. I watched a kid do this or do that or help a kid up. I just love the way your kids play. And that's success. Character building is success. So I've been preaching this a long time. And let me tell you, and I'll go off on a tangent because I am at the UIL level and I see this stuff statewide. Every one of you out there that's coaching, understand not every state does it this way. I believe in this profession. I will bleed for this profession. I have, literally, at times, and am proud to do so. But we're in an economic quandary right now. Who knows what the tax base is going to be? And do you know what one of the first things that people are going to look at? Not every state has coaches that are teachers that work that are during the school day. You don't even want to see the value of how much can be saved if you pulled that out. If you said, let's just do coaches, they're not professionals. And, look at, and here's the biggest concern I have, and then I'll get back on tax. But it's these club activities. So they're preaching that they are the coaches. They are the ones providing it. So you're going to have board members. It's already happened where that board member doesn't even have a kid in UIL. That board member has a kid that's playing club volleyball. So are they going to be inclined to do something to continue to spend a lot of money on an in-school activity when they are seeing, well, the club does the same thing. Now, the club doesn't do the same thing. And that club is about, I don't care who it is, it's about one thing and one thing only, and that's bettering that kid's chance to get a scholarship, which is part of success. But that is not all of success. And they're setting themselves up for failures too, because as we all know, not every kid gets a scholarship. And not everybody wins a state championship. I was very fortunate. It was a life-altering thing to play in a state championship football game at Floyd Casey Stadium with Toby York as his first job as a head coach. Played the Gilmer Buckeyes on a cold December day. And I still can get free hamburgers in Cameron, Texas because of that. So don't tell me it's not a difference maker. But you can't just preach that aspect. So my point is this: please realize that these club activities can cause our profession to alter in a not so good way. And our job is to continue to sell our programs as difference makers. And now more than ever. So why should we have athletics in the middle of a pandemic? Because it matters that much. Now, we'll balance it. I'm not suggesting I'm here to say we're doing it for sure. But I absolutely think if we're going to have school, then why would we not have one of the most important aspects of it, which is extracurricular activities? All right, let me see if I can wrap up here before Ray gives me a thumbs up. So success is about making a difference in a kid's life, number one, and winning and succeeding. We don't need to apologize that winning and succeeding. I mean, you know what? China, I'll bet, would love to see us do away with extracurricular activities and not worry about competing and not worrying about being the best. This is still a world where there are those out there that are not our friends. And our job is to build character and to celebrate success and teach kids how to succeed. Enhancing the brand, anything that you do. So what is success? Enhance the brand. Make it a better brand. Lake Travis, my gosh, what a brand that is. And yet Hank is enhancing it. That's success. Wherever you're at, you enhance the brand. And lastly, don't ever lose focus that our job is to build character. Our job is to build better citizens. Our job is to promote that. That's something Hank talked about, which is true. Communicate it. Get the message out. This is 100 years and Craig Way knows this. This is a 100-year anniversary of football. That first game was Cleburne and the Heights, and they tied. What a historical time. And yeah, this could be a challenge. Let's make it a good thing. Let's make it a focus more than ever on why you would want to have extracurricular activities even during this time, because we need leaders more than ever. Do we not need leaders? Do we look around and do we see absence of leadership? So I think I'm close to the end, Craig, and no, I didn't have any handouts, and very much appreciate each of you and the job that you do. Every one of you is making a difference in kids' lives in ways that other people cannot do. You know that. They'll listen to you sometimes before they'll listen to a parent. So hold the baton high, enhance the brand, and let's keep this profession as strong as it ever has been. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Poole. Outstanding words. We do appreciate that. Just as Dr. Poole was discussing, and just as Coach Carter was discussing, the values of being a head coach. And for many of you out there, those of you who already know the importance of this profession, what exactly it means to be a head coach. Sometimes it's hearing it from a head coach himself and what it means to him, especially if you come from a coaching family. And that's what our next speaker has done. Kendall Miller just finished his 8th season as the head football coach at Lakeview Centennial High School in Garland after taking the school to its first trip back to the playoffs in 30 years. But this is a journey for Coach Miller that began a 21-year coaching journey that began in Arlington as a math teacher and an assistant coach at Sam Houston High School. And after 10 years as an assistant, Coach Miller received his first head coaching position at South Oak Cliff High School in Dallas, where he spent 3 seasons. And after winning 2 district championships and 2 Coach of the Year honors, Coach Miller began his current position at Lakeview. As I mentioned, he is from a coaching family. Coach Miller's father was a Texas high school coach for 34 years before retiring in 1997. And Coach Miller now, his son, is the junior director for Region 3 on the THSCA board, the son of Osel and Annie Miller. Here to discuss what it means to be a head coach is the head coach from Lakeview Centennial High School in Garland, Coach Kendall Miller. Coach?
Craig, thank you. Thank you for that introduction. And very excited to be here and very honored for this privilege to speak on this topic. Hard to follow Dr. Poole and Hank and the message that they sent today. My story, I've made a last-second audible, as coaches do on Friday morning and game time, but my title is now The Journey and the Job. And the picture that I have in front of you is one that's very important to me because there's two different pictures. There's one on the left that's that coaching picture, and the journey that we're going to talk about is how we go from that picture on the left to the one that's on the right. I started my career, as Craig said, in Arlington at Sam Houston as an assistant, and I was a running backs coach and had an opportunity to be on an outstanding staff. I looked up, and our offensive coordinator was Scott Peach, and we had Brandon Bennett was receivers coach. He was the person he was mic'd to. George McFarland was the assistant head coach and the offensive line coach. And so I looked at it, and if you could say on the offensive side, I was kind of fourth in the pecking order as far as getting to that position that I wanted to be. I wanted to eventually be a head coach, and as assistants, we always say, well, how do I get to that coordinator spot so then I can be considered for that head coach? In other words, we ask, are we in the right position? Am I in the right position to be that? So I looked at it and I said, well, if I'm going to be a head coach, then I probably need to go someplace else because there's 4 people in front of me that have an opportunity to do that. I probably need to go someplace where I can be a little farther down the line. I picked up the phone, I called my dad, and fortunately, my dad put me in the right place. He says, no, you're not going to look for some other place. And he said, you aren't going to try to go and get into a different position and jockey for that position to get into it. He said, you're going to make the very best of where you are right now and be the absolute most in the position that you're in. So I went from there, from the running backs coach, and Coach Perry came and said I needed a JV head coach. I said I'd do it. And those of you that have done that, sometimes that calls for more duties. You're going to have to be after varsity practice and take your JV through the walkthrough. You're going to have to take the JV offense and walk them through plays and go through their special teams as the varsity assistants may go off and get ready for the game the next day. You're going to ride the bus to every JV game while some of the varsity coaches drive. And you have to come back. It's going to put you later. But you're also putting in work that's going to set you up for where it is that you want to be. So we can't look at it from the point of, well, I'm having to do something that someone else has to do. You are looking at the fact that I am doing that, and it's preparing me for what it is that I'm trying to get to. It takes me to this quote. Dr. King said this. He said, do your current job well. That if a man is called to be a street sweeper, he should sweep streets even as Michelangelo painted, as Beethoven composed music, and as Shakespeare wrote poetry. He said he should sweep streets so well that all the host of heaven and earth will pause to say he lived a great street sweeper who did his job well. As a coach, we take on that responsibility. That was the start of Coach Com and video, and I learned how to do it. Then it was a whole lot harder. You had to actually record the video in the time that the game was actually played. There was no live capture. It wasn't digital. You had to hook a VCR up and do it. So I would stay up on Friday nights and usually get out of there at about 3 because I'm running the tapes through so the next day we could watch the tape in all 3 angles. I say that to say as we went on and we did that, and here I was the 4th in line. In the next year, Coach Bennett, our receiver coach, went and took a basketball job. So I moved up. The next year, Coach Peach left to go be the head coach. And I went all of a sudden from 4th to a year and a half. I'm now in that offensive coordinator position that I wanted to be in to prepare me for that head coaching job that I aspired to be. So I say that to say don't overplan for your journey. You can't overplan for it. I equate it to driving in traffic. You ever been in a traffic jam and you're driving and you're trying to get into the perfect spot to get in that spot, right? You're in that second lane and then, okay, this lane to my left is moving a little bit faster. So let me jump over here because that one's going faster. Okay, now this lane over here is going faster, and I go back. Then I go to the far left and get in that lane. It's going faster also. After about 15 minutes of doing that, you'll look over and you see the car that just stayed in the second lane from the right, and there are 15 cars up in front of you. I've wasted that energy and I wasted that time, and I'm still in the exact same spot I was at the start of that journey. That car made the most of where they were, and they continued to advance. How many coaches do we know like that? I've moved to this spot to try to get it. I've moved to this spot to try to get it. And that coach that we may have even thought wasn't as sharp as I was kept rising where they were. They kept rising where they were, and all of a sudden they passed me. So it's so important that we make the most of the position where we are. It's so important that we say, can I be the head coach where I am? If not, how can I be at another place? So the interview for that head coaching job starts today. The interview process doesn't start once the job opening comes and you go online and apply for it and walk into the room in the panel. That's actually not the interview. That interview is right now. The picture we have here has all the different sports, many that you see on high school campuses. And how many of those do you go to as a coach? Often we say, well, once I become the head coach, then I'm going to start going to those other events, but it doesn't work that way. How visible are we right now as an assistant to go visit and to go be seen at those different events? When they have a basketball game and it's the rivalry game and the crowd may get a little rowdy and they need that coach in there to make sure that everything stays in order, are you the person that they call on to do that? Do you have that control and that respect over those people to garnish that position? Because when it comes down to it, that's how those principals view us. That's how the athletic directors view us. The first time that they hear of us can't be when we walk in for that interview. It has to be what they see us do every single day. I hear from coaches a lot, and they say, well, you know, it's not what you know, it's who you know. And I don't think that's accurate. I think it's both, though. I think it's what you know, and I think it's who you know. And I think that's accurate, though. What you know gets you into the equation. It gets you into the ball game. What you know gives you the opportunity to even be considered for that head coaching position. Who you know is what gets you that opportunity from that other principal or that other athletic director. And some say that's not fair. It shouldn't be about who you know. It should be about what you know. And I beg to differ. I think it should be about who you know. Or more important, not necessarily who you know, but who knows you. I needed plumbing to be done in my house, and I'm cheap, right? I'm not going to go, when I do plumbing, I'm not going to go and find the one that has the most advertisement or the nicest van and the nicest truck, because that's typically, you're going to pay more when you need a housing project to do that, right? I want the one that's on the back page that doesn't have any fancy advertisement. I want the one that I can pay the least amount to and get the best work. So what do? When I hired that plumber for my house and for my job, I say, we're going to call somebody we know first. Say, hey, do you have a guy that does plumbing? Do you have a guy that does flooring? Or do you have a guy that does tile work? And they'll say, yeah, I have a guy. Here's a number. Call him. And he comes out. That's something that we all do. If I want work done for me or my house, or I'm looking for a service, I'm always going to call somebody and ask, do you have somebody to refer me to? So that plumbing job that I needed under my sink, it cost about $150. And I thought of it, it made me think just then. I said, well, if I'm going to ask somebody and I'm going to refer to somebody for a job that costs $150, why in the world would they not do that for a job that costs $100,000? So we can think that I'm the greatest coach in the world, but I don't have to go out and be seen. I don't have to go out and make those relationships. I don't have to broaden my circles. And we do, and we will be just like that car that's in traffic that goes back and forth, but we're still in that same position. We can argue if that's right, but we must understand that that is something that we take part of, and that's something that individually we believe in when we go for hiring for someone for work. So to know that, if we get to that point We've broadened our circles. We have to understand exactly what it is that we're interviewing for. Because here's what's funny. You're not interviewing for a coaching position anymore. This is one of my favorite movies. It is Denzel Washington and Clive Owen. And the movie was Inside Man. And Clive Owen is the bank robber, and you can see him there. He's dressed in the mask, and they took everyone hostage in the bank with the guns and locked everyone else out. And Denzel Washington is the police officer, and he's coming in trying to negotiate the bank robbers out of the building. In that, one of the lines in the movie, Denzel says to Clive Owen, he says, "What are you doing?" Because things now just aren't adding up to him. He says, "What are you doing?" He says, "This ain't no bank robbery." I say the same thing for you in a coaching position. When you're interviewing for the head coaching position, this ain't no coaching position you're interviewing for. You're already a coach. You've been coaching for the last however years. You're already a coach. This is not a coaching position you're interviewing for anymore. You're interviewing for the spokesperson of the campus. You're interviewing for the job of the spokesperson of the community. When you walk in and you sit in front of that superintendent and you sit in front of that principal and you sit in front of that panel, you can go in and talk about running the 4-2-5 defense, or you can talk about running the spread, or running the veer, or running the I, or running the wing T. You can talk about that all that you want to. And they won't have any idea of what it is that you're saying. You could say, "I'm going to run the 4-4-4 on defense with 12 people," and they would nod their head and say, "Yes, you know what, I think that'd be good." Right? Doesn't matter. Those people that are in those positions now, see, we used to live in a time where all of our principals were ex-coaches and our superintendents were ex-principals that were ex-coaches. And I can tell you right now, that's getting less and less and less. Our principals now are former testing coordinators, academic. They could be coming from elementary, that have no idea what it means to be a football coach, or understanding what it is that you do X and O wise. So they look up and they say, "Hey, can this person be the spokesperson for our campus?" Because that's literally what you are. Can they be the spokesperson for our community? You will be interviewed more than your principal ever will be. You'll be recognized in your community more than your principal. You will be the most recognizable face on your campus and in your community throughout it. So are you representing it the way that it needs to be? You're the biggest dropout prevention specialist in your district. I know we have people that have that title. That's also a title that you carry. Because see, if you're a football coach, you're also more than likely going to you're going to have the program that has the most at-risk students on the campus. So just like that, you're a dropout prevention specialist. You're going to have kids that the only reason that they come into school is because they're coming to you to practice football that day. Now, to do that, they have to take care of their business in the classroom. There's some you're going to have to make that get up in the morning. There's some that you're going to have to make sure that they go to class, that they get their work done. There's some you're going to stay after practice with because they have homework to do, and you know they won't do it if they go home, so you set them up on your computers in your coach's office to do that when everyone else in the building is going home. And when administrators interview and a topic for them is dropout prevention, understand the biggest program that prevents that is your football program. So you're the spokesperson of the campus. You're also the dropout prevention specialist. You're more than a coach. You're the head of community outreach. When you walk into a restaurant, you're going to get, "Hey, coach." You may not know them, but they know you. "Coach, how's the game going? Coach, what's going to happen? Coach, are we going to play football this year? Coach, what's happening with class?" They'll talk to you about your principal. They'll talk to you about other teachers. You're the community outreach person. You're the campus relations specialist. If you don't believe that, again, this isn't the place. If there's an issue up front in your school and may have been tension between students, or I know what happens at our place, and we love doing this because of the relationship our coaches have with our students. You'll be the person that we come to. Hey, coach, we've had this today in the school. Can you be up front? Yeah, no problem. Because we have a language that we can talk with those kids to quell that in a sense. You're the backbone of your community. If you don't recognize who that is in that photo, that is Coach Herman Boone at T.C. Williams High School from Remember the Titans. I know we're expecting to see Denzel Washington, but no, that's the actual Coach Boone. So many people were influential in that school and in that community, but the movie is made after the football coach. At a time when we looked at, it seemed like there could be no a community that could not be united. The only thing that could, the saving grace, was the football program. And the football program led by that football coach. Is this what we're prepared to be when we step in and interview for that position? Because that is what it is that we hold. You're the backbone of the community. You're the front porch of the house. I heard Coach Gary Patterson say, football is not the most important part of our institution, our school, and it's not. We're not the most important part of the school, but we are the front porch of the house. If you go to your house, the front porch is not the most important part. It's the foundation, it's the brick, but the front porch is what everybody sees. If I walk up to that house and the front porch has the doorknob falling off and the door is raggedy and it's dirty, then that gives me a mindset of what this house is going to be like on the inside. It gives me what the structure must be like, because the very first thing I see about this house isn't something that I like. I have this picture here of Coach Mike Gundy. And if you don't believe that analogy, then you look here with Coach Gundy. And I can promise you there is a professor somewhere in Stillwater, Oklahoma, that watches One Action News. And not anybody cares, because they're not the front porch of the house. No one will say, okay, this professor thinks one thing, so that's a reflection of our university. No, but when it comes from the head football coach, then we say, okay, that's the person that gives out what our university is about. That's what the job is. When we move on and we're in that position and we want to look, will the current staff that you're a part of, will they work for you? Because again, if before we're a uniter outside in our community, we have to be a uniter in our coach's office. Do those other coaches, is there division between me and other coaches? Or when my head coach leaves, will my principal look and say, okay, that's who I want to be my head coach, because I like my assistant coaches and I know that staff will stay intact if I hire him. If not, if we're saying, if I hire you and I know that this person is going to leave, if we cannot be the head coach of the school where we are, how can we be recommended for another one? So much more responsibility. If we've noticed, everything we've talked about today hasn't been anything about X's and O's. It hasn't been about how many periods of practice that we're going to have. It hasn't been how we're going to practice our up-tempo offense. It hasn't been anything about how much emphasis we're going to put on special teams. To even get in the room, that we have to already be prepared for. But to be put in this position, these are the leadership qualities that we must have. We have to understand that we're the spokesperson of the school. We have to be the binder of our staff that we have. We can't be the person that divides it. We have to be able to be the front porch of that house. One of my other favorite movies, if you can tell, Denzel Washington, I guess, is one of my favorite actors. I just realized that. The movie Crimson Tide. And it's a fantastic movie about leadership. And it's Denzel Washington and Gene Hackman. And this one, Gene Hackman is the captain and Denzel Washington is the CO. And there comes a riff at some point, and Gene Hackman asks Denzel Washington, are you ready to be the captain of a ship? And Denzel says, yes, I am. And Gene said, are you sure? He said, because to be the captain of the ship, are you ready to make the tough decisions? And any of you that have seen that movie, you remember as it moves on, one of the first decisions he had to make was a very tough one. He had to seal the hatch when they had a flood, and he had to seal 2 members of the submarine division in the bottom of it. He had to seal them down there, and it killed them in order to save the whole ship. That same thing as a head coach now, to be the captain. Are you ready to make the tough decisions to be that head coach? Now, I'm not saying you're going to have to kill one of your assistant coaches, but it could mean that that assistant coach that's a friend of yours that you hang out with, but they're pulling in an opposite direction of your school vision, of your head coach's vision, of your program's vision, that may be someone that you have to part with in order to keep that whole ship afloat and in order to be that captain. I hope I was able to provide a few tidbits today about that will possibly help in the journey for some of you in looking for that head coaching position. A lot of those I learned by trial and error. I don't want to sound as if I'm one that made all those, that did all those things correctly. Some of those mistakes I made that I talk about, but the best learning we can do sometimes are from the mistakes that we make. And some of those that we've pointed out in there, we have a self-evaluation and say, am I putting myself in the position to be the spokesperson of your school? I think that's my time. So look through. Craig, thank you. And thank you for the introduction, and good luck to each of you.
Coach, thank you very much. Appreciate your time and very much appreciate your message. So we've heard from a variety of speakers about what it takes to be a head coach, the process of what you do as you are a head coach. And we just heard Coach Miller touch on it very briefly. Now we're going to get some greater detail on do's and don'ts, basically, the do's and don'ts of landing a head coaching job, because in order to be a head coach, you have to start off by landing a head coaching job. So what are the do's and don'ts? Certainly an athletic director can tell you a bit about that, and our next speaker is well qualified there. Ray Zapata is in his 5th year with the Cypress Fairbanks Independent School District's athletic department as the athletic director, after serving as the associate athletic director for 3 years, working with and for former athletic director Ed Warkins. The Cy-Fair ISD has had a great run of success over the years, and during his time at Cy-Fair, their teams have won 6-team state championships in 4 different sports. He's helped oversee an athletic building and a capital project in excess of $125 million over the past 5 years. Prior to arriving at Cy-Fair, he had a 20-year coaching career with 9 years as a head football coach and an athletic administrator. He spent 7 years as head football coach and athletic coordinator at Galena Park High School. He was also an athletic director and a head football coach of the Mathis Independent School District, the 3A school district located near his hometown of Corpus Christi. He also had assistant coaching stops at Ray High School in Corpus Christi, Houston Milby, and also as an assistant at Galena Park as the defensive coordinator. So certainly well qualified in all areas, not only to talk about being a coach, but an administrator as well. And here to talk about some of those do's and don'ts of landing a head coaching job, please welcome the athletic director for the Cy-Fair Independent School District, Ray Zapata.
And I'm super excited to be here, Craig. I don't ever think I've ever been introduced by the world famous Craig Way. So I appreciate you being with us today, and just this opportunity that Joe and Glenn have given me. I did see that Dr. Poole popped back up, and I think that's because he knew you would be introducing me. And Dr. Poole handed me many butt kickings when I was there at Galena Park. So I understand that he would pop back up to hear that introduction. But, you know, I'm excited to be here. I've been coming to this convention for 30 years, and this is the first convention exactly like this. But I actually started attending the coaching convention before I was teaching and coaching. My old high school coaches, who were really more like mentors to me, they would bring me up to coaching school and sit me down in lectures, and I would have to take notes and explain to them, you know, what I learned. And it was a great basis for establishing a coaching career. And it would have been hard back in that old Astrodome complex to really, when I was listening to D.W. Rutledge and Bob McQueen, to have imagined that I would have a chance to participate in a role like this at the coaching convention. So I'm very proud to be here and to be representing a fine public school system like Cy-Fair ISD. You know, with that being said, I really hope that all of you get something out of my presentation today. I'm going to kind of build on some of the things that Coach Miller talked about and maybe give you some hints or some tips as you're trying to work towards your first head coaching job. You know, it was a few years ago that I was sitting at the Head Coaches Academy, and Coach West was actually about to speak, and I was looking around the room, and he came up to me, and he was kind of chuckling a little bit. And he said, Ray, he asked me, Ray, what are you doing? And I said, you know, Coach, I'm looking around for all those guys that have professed to wanting to be a head coach, and I wanted to see if they're here in the room. And he laughed, and he kind of said, well, are you actually keeping a list? And I said, absolutely I am, you know, because it's easy to say that you want to be a head coach. It's harder to invest in some experience that allows you to be a head coach, et cetera. So again, I commend all of you that have stayed with us through this presentation. They're trying to learn and get better today. You know, Craig mentioned my time here in Cy-Fair, and I've been here for 7.5 years. And during that time, I've been fortunate enough, because of our size, to participate in eight campus coordinator head football coaching searches. And I actually counted this weekend, I've sat in 95 interviews for head football coaches in my time here in Cy-Fair ISD. And the basis of my talk is really those 95 interviews that I've sat in, as I've watched people be successful and other people struggle through that process. So today I'm going to kind of divide up my talk into really 3 sections, and I'm going to address 3 different types of coaches. The coach that's really at the front end of their career, the first 3 to 5 years, and they're trying to get established. Coaches that are kind of pivoting out of that new coach area to an experienced coach, and then those coaches that are really at the cusp of trying to land that head coaching job. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen with you right now, and I'm going to get into my presentation. And again, Craig mentioned that, again, my presentation today is about the do's and don'ts of landing that head coaching position. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. And again, I'm going to start with the new coaches. If you're a brand new coach, and the first thing I'm going to say, and Coach Miller kind of addressed this, I think it's a mistake if you chase titles or you chase jobs. You know, it's always disconcerting to look at a new head coach's or a new coach's resume and to see that they've hopped from job to job in the first 3 to 5 years of their career. It's very difficult when you're a new coach to establish any type of development and continuity of development if you're moving from job to job, campus to campus, and culture to culture. I think it's more important that you chase mentors and a quality experience. Those first couple of coaching jobs and teaching jobs that you have is going to be so important, and you really want to hitch your wagon to mentors that are really good at not only developing kids, but developing adults as well. So again, I think that it's important to identify what is that place where you can grow the most, and then you need to try to work towards staying there and developing. Try to say all the time, identify that great job, stay in there, and then develop. Secondly, you know, it's almost become a joke in our profession about the clinic coach, the guy that is there in the lobby at the clinic, and they spend more time working on the next job than trying to learn some balls so they can be really good in the job that they have. I don't think that you should spend time on overspend time on networking, but you do need to invest time in self-improvement and in learning. And I'm going to point out a couple of particular areas that you should spend your time in. You know, obviously you want to be the best coach you can. So learning as much as you can about your chosen sport, I think is super important. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about that later. But I think it's also just as important to become a better teacher. You know, investing your time in instruction and trying to be a quality instructor. Many times those assistant principals that are going to be evaluating you in the classroom, your first, second, or third year, those assistant principals go on to become principals and eventually go on to become superintendents and hire people. So they're going to remember the young coach that really did all that they could to be the best that they could in all areas of their job. I think you also need to develop a little bit of a time on trying to be the best communicator that you can be. And Coach Miller kind of addressed that in his talk. You know, all of us probably when we started out, we're not really comfortable in a public speaking role, and that's perfectly normal. However, with that being said, I think that you need to try to get as many opportunities as possible to get up in front of people and to speak and to learn how to be comfortable in that environment. As Coach Miller mentioned, many times you are the public spokesman for that school and that school district, and how you handle yourself will determine the types of jobs that you get and that you can continue to get as you work through your career. You know, you also need to spend some time on being great with the written word. It's amazing, you know, the type of resumes that I sometimes get, or even emails, where you'll see someone is not really polished as a writer. Very difficult to hire those people when you realize that person's going to be sending those same emails to parents in your community. Finally, I think in today's day and age, trying to be really good as far as your digital proficiency, I think that's very important. And I want to start with your sport, trying to learn to utilize a video in an effective manner so that you can be a more effective coach, I think is super important. Our kids are visual learners today, and trying to utilize video to help prove your point and make them better athletes, I think is an important aspect of your job. But beyond utilizing video in your coaching role, I think it's trying to utilize digital marketing to try to market what you're about and learn how to use social media in a positive way so that you can market the values and the culture of your program. I would also say that you don't want to isolate yourself in the coach's office. Many young coaches are most comfortable down there in the locker room and in the field house, but it's important, and Coach Miller kind of addressed this, to find ways of building quality relationships with all stakeholders on campus. It's important to go out to volleyball games and to be seen at other sports. It's important to know the teachers on your campus, obviously the campus administrators, but also even the janitors. You know, the more people that you can have that speak positively about you and what you do on that campus, I think the better it is for you when you go out and you're trying to look for that job. So don't isolate yourself in the coach's office. Again, through my 7 years, it's funny to see sometimes guys that are applying for head coaching jobs, and that now you start to see them out at other sports. That's not the time to start going to the other sports, as Coach Miller mentioned. You want to get out and get ahead of that and get out and support your fellow coaches and other athletes in sports that you might not even coach. I would also say that while X's and O's is important, you can't just be about the ball. But even specifically in regards to your assignments related to coaching, you need to develop excellence and experience in all areas, not even directed to ball. So, you know, we're at the time of year where there's a lot of coaching retreats, and I can remember going to those as an assistant coach, and people would compare the length of their list. There was always some coaches that had a very short list, and they would really be ball coaches, and there would be others that would have a longer list of duties and responsibilities. And I can remember those with the short list laughing and thinking that they had the advantage of those with the longer list. I think the opposite is sometimes true. You really need to develop key competencies and experiences in other areas not directly related to your sport itself. Some of these areas might be UIL rules and eligibility processes, learning everything that you can about what makes a student eligible or ineligible. You know, there's almost nothing that will get you in trouble faster than playing an ineligible athlete. And trying to get in that UIL and TEA side by side and in the Constitution and contest rules and your sport manual, I think is very important. Most head coaches have to deal with obviously equipment and also budgets. You don't want to wait to your first head coaching job to be able to do that and have experience with that. So even if you're not assigned to be the equipment guy or deal with the inventory or order the equipment, I would suggest it's great to volunteer in those roles and learn as much as you can in those important areas. Working into booster clubs, Hank talked a little bit about this earlier. You know, going to booster club meetings and meeting people. You know, oftentimes it's the people that are most influential in your community that go to a booster club meeting. Trying to get to know those people and them get to know you, and maybe more importantly, to see how those booster club meetings are run and what are the ins and outs of the rules and regulations with booster clubs, I think forms the basis of important experience that you will have to draw on when you're a head coach. Parents, how to handle difficult conversations. Hank did a great job of kind of talking into that. But you know, one of the best things that I did when I was first coaching is I worked for a great head coach in Mike Coker, and he would make me sit there with him oftentimes when he was having parent conferences or on the phone with a parent. And while I was probably not well versed enough at that point in my career to handle those conversations, watching him do that and do that effectively, I think really served me well when I got my first head coaching job. You know, we would not ever give the keys to the car to someone that doesn't know how to drive. And it's very difficult to get a head coaching job to someone that does not have key experience in these areas. So the more that you can do to try to build experience into a multitude of areas having to do with your sport, the better I think that you're going to be. So again, while you can't all be about the ball, I do think that you need to become an expert in your chosen sport. Really, in today's day and age, with so much information out there, there's no excuse to not be the best coach and the most informed coach on your staff. There's online clinics, online resources. People are quick in this day and age with the Zoom to step in and to speak into your experience. And again, you have to be a great expert when it comes to your sport, because ultimately that's going to be the key factor that's going to decide whether you're able to keep that job once you land it. I'm now going to speak to that coach that's maybe transitioned out of being a new head coach to now the next phase of their career where they've gained some experience. And I'm going to talk about some things that I think that are important in that phase of your work life. Number one, I think that you need to be known as a worker. You need to be coming in early. You need to be staying late. Again, it's very hard as the leader of a program to ask people to do things that you're not known for. I think that you need to drive the bus, and I don't mean that literally, but I think that you need to be service oriented. You need to have a how can I help attitude. Many years ago, I was at a wrestling tournament. I saw one of our football defensive coordinators sitting in the stands. And a week later, I saw him at a tennis tournament. And I finally asked him, I said, Coach, why aren't you home with your family on the weekend? And he says, well, Coach, they needed a driver, and I was available to help. That coach became known on his campus as someone that was always there to help others, and it made a great impression on us. And so when it came time for a head coaching opportunity that he was interested in, that became available, we remembered that, and we always knew what type of steward he would be of a group of kids and also staff members. I think that you need to be positive and you need to build people up. We all know serial complainers and those people that can find the muck even in the best of situations. But, I think the people that usually advance are those that are the most positive. And especially with what we're going through right now, I think it's that person that can try to sell hope to everybody on that staff and on that team is the one. Those are the types of people that typically move forward in their career. I also think that you need to be a problem solver and not a problem creator. And we talk about that all the time here in our district. Again, there are some people that no matter how difficult the challenge is that you give them, they find a way to get the job done. And there's other people that will take the most advantageous of situations and they'll find a way to create difficulty in it. So again, leaders are professional problem solvers, and the sooner that you can work into that, I think the better. And finally, I think that you need to be about kids. As we work through our career, we develop critical relationships with coaches and coaches on the staff, and sometimes it becomes easier to spend time with the adults rather than the kids. I always had a pet peeve as a head coach when I would look out there on the field and we had kids out there getting ready to practice, and we had adults that were interacting with each other instead of interacting with the kids. Again, trying to learn how to communicate with kids in an effective manner and be known as a person that moves the needle with kids, those are the type of people that typically advance in their career. I also think that you need to lead yourself first, and then you need to lead other adults. And what I'm talking about is finding experience in critical areas to build your leadership capacity with other adults. So whether that's being a team leader and starting there in the classroom, or department head, or as Coach Miller mentioned, going out and calling the plays and handling the bus and handling the kids on the sub-varsity game night. I think that's very important. We've had coordinators that are position coaches at times that have applied for jobs, and they will point out, other position coaches that never had coordinator experience that have landed a head coaching job and been successful. I think that those people are really outliers, because just with anything else, you get better at when you practice and when you gain experience. So again, don't ask me to project into your ability to lead. Prove it by what you do in your job capacity. And finally, I want to address those coaches that are in transition that feel like they're ready to be a head coach. And what should I do at that point? I would say, first of all, don't wait for the job to come to you. We all have identified jobs in our careers that we think would be great fits for us and great fits for our family. You can work into that job by building relationships at that area. And you can start by trying to learn as much as you can about that individual situation. You can do that digitally. You can learn a lot by what people put out there on social media, a lot about the culture, about the organization itself. You can send emails, you can send text messages, anything that you can do to try to provide some type of understanding of who you are. As Coach just mentioned previously, people hire who they know. So become known in the places that you feel like would be a good fit for you. I think today, with as much as we're reliant on the phone and on emails, I think the more that you can send an old-fashioned card, I think becomes important, and people remember that. I would also say, being bold enough to have casual conversation with people and let them get to understand who you are and put a face with a name becomes important. But we want to do this in the right way. You need to invest where you are in the present job that you have, and then work towards a job that you might want to have in the future. Finally, I'd also say, don't wait for that dream job to come open to interview. You know, you need to find ways of building skill with an interview. Interviewing is a skill. And I think the more that you practice, the better that you become. There have been several times that we've had coaches that have bypassed opportunities to interview for a job because maybe that job wasn't the right fit for them. But when the job came open that they really wanted, they struggled in the interview process. Don't let that happen to you. Spend some time practicing and working towards being the best interview that you can be. While some people would say you can't put too much stock in an hour, hour and a half interview, it's what you're doing on a daily basis that's important. I would agree with that, especially for internal candidates. But I do think that interviewing is a window into how somebody thinks on their feet and how they're going to handle a situation when they're caught off guard in the store or by a parent, etc. I would also say don't come into an interview without doing your homework. You need to really do some investing in taking some time and learning about the community, the campus, the culture, and the core values. You know, here in Sci-Fair, we're really about three critical things when it comes to our athletic department. We're about uniquely utilizing athletics to improve academic performance. We're about athletic excellence and competing in the right way, in a way with great sportsmanship. And we're about utilizing community service and having our athletes perform community service so that we grow good community citizens. You know, we've had people that have come into our interviews and they do not know that and they don't speak into that. It's hard for us to then project this person into a leadership role on our campus. I also think that you need to have a compelling answer to the question of why you're the best candidate for the job. Almost every interview ends with that question, and there have been many times when we've had people that get stumped with that question. You need to have a compelling narrative of why you're the best fit for that job, because that's the question that that interviewer is asking. And the hint that I would give you is it's not the same answer in every interview. While your skill set might be the same, that each job is different and how you project into each job is different. So be specific in what you're saying. Finally, I would say in closing, don't let disappointment with the job search define you or bring you down. We've all been told no at some point, and those no's sometimes lead to a better yes. So have faith, bloom where you're planted, and keep swinging, but don't swing indiscriminately. Don't be the guy that applies for every job that's out there, because not every job is the right one. The only thing worse than not having a head coaching job is having the wrong one. And sometimes you only have a couple of chances to make this happen for your career. In closing, I just want to say thank you to the Texas High School Coaching Association, to Joe Martin and Glenn West for having me here. This is the honor of a lifetime to be here and to be able to do this. I wish all of you guys the best. This is going to be a tough year, but it's going to be a great year. I wish you the best. Thank you.
Ray, thank you very much. We appreciate it. Great words this afternoon and great conversation there from Coach Zepeda, also from Coach Miller, from Dr. Poole, and from Coach Carter. We thank you for being a part of this. And as we mentioned all along, and as you've heard from Joe Martin and Glenn West, it's a different way of doing things, obviously, in the current times in which we're living and the adversarial circumstances with which we are dealing. But the response has been outstanding, not only to this event, but throughout the course of the entire coaching school to this point. We thank you for joining us, and we hope you have a great rest of our virtual coaching school for the rest of this 2020 Texas High School Coaches Association Coaching School. Thank you for joining us.